O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom, know it with certainty, and accomplish it perfectly, for the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabeg, Dakota Oete, Dene Sulane, and Neothoic nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. Prior to routine proceedings, I have a statement for the House. Today, Monday, May 12th, 2025, marks the 155th anniversary of the day the Manitoba Act received royal assent in the Canadian Parliament. This act created the province of Manitoba, and accordingly, May 12th has been designated as Manitoba Day. In honor of this occasion, members will notice some treasured artifacts displayed on the clerk's table today. The star blanket cushion and beaded mace runner gifted to us by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in 2010. The Métis sash gifted to us in 2023 by the Manitoba Métis Federation, and a soapstone polar bear carving gifted to us by the Legislative Assembly of Nunavut in 2023. These artifacts are displayed in the chamber today to recognize and pay tribute to the Indigenous peoples of Manitoba as we celebrate this day. They serve as a reminder that this chamber and our legislative building and the province reside on the traditional lands of the Indigenous people as we recognize each day in our land acknowledgement. As your speaker, I'm honored and humbled to include these treasured artifacts in our annual celebration of Manitoba Day. As members may know, in the interest of advancing the Assembly's commitment to reconciliation, it is my intention as your speaker to find ways to incorporate these artifacts and other meaningful symbols or acts in the chamber on a daily basis. As another important example of the Assembly's commitment to reconciliation, I would point to last week when, for the first time in our 154-year history, we were able to provide live interpretation of a ministerial statement delivered in the Cree language. I'm certain that will not be the last time we provide such a service to members, and I am pleased we are able to offer this benefit to all members. In addition to these artifacts, as we have done for many years now, in today's Speaker's Parade, our Sergeant-at-Arms carried our original Manitoba mace. This mace made its first formal appearance on March 15th, 1871, on the first sitting day of the first session of the first Manitoba Legislature, held in the home of A.G.B. Bannatyne in the Red River Settlement. The Bannatyne home was destroyed by fire in December 1873, but thankfully the mace survived. After 13 years of service, our original mace was retired in 1884 when our current mace debuted. The original mace has a permanent home on display outside the Speaker's office, coming out of retirement annually to mark this day and other special events. This historical artifact sits on the table today to reference our past, but also to remind all members that we are part of a very select group of Manitoba citizens. Since the mace was first placed on the clerk's table in 1871, only 882 Manitobans, including all of us, have served as members of this assembly in this room and the rooms that preceded it. Out of the millions of Manitobans who have lived in the province over the last 154 years, only this small, fortunate group has had the honor, privilege, and solemn responsibility of serving our fellow citizens as their elected representatives. Our system is certainly not perfect. Historically, not everyone in Manitoba has had the right to vote, and it took many decades for Indigenous people and women to gain that right. As we commemorate this event, then, it is worth remembering that our democracy is a fragile work in progress. It needs to be protection, and this has never been more evident than it is now in 2025. We should never take the privilege of living in a democracy for granted. I am reminded of the honored veterans who graced us with their presence in the chamber last week to commemorate VE Day. Those men were here representing the hundreds of thousands of Canadians who fought to preserve our democracy. I hope we all remember them and their sacrifice as we strive to do our best in this place each and every day. In honor of Manitoba Day, and with this rich history in mind, I would encourage all members to reflect on our shared responsibility to serve Manitobans with honor, respect, and reverence. I would encourage all of us to remember that our work in this place is part of a very long legacy of service to the people of Manitoba, and we should be thinking of them every time we stand to speak in this House. Thank you. Routine proceedings. Introduction of bills. Committee reports. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Honourable Speaker, I wish to present the fourth report of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts.
Your Standing Committee on Public...
Yes, Spence. The Honourable Member for Borderland.
Honourable Speaker, I move, seconded by the Honourable Member for Elmwood, that the report of the committee be received.
Been moved by the Honourable Member for Borderland, seconded by the Honourable Member for Elmwood, that the fourth report of the Standing Committee of Public Accounts be received. Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion? Agreed, and so ordered. The motion is accordingly passed. Tabling of reports. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, I want to table for consideration of departmental estimates for the Committee of Supply the sequence for today only.
Ministerial statements. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources and Indigenous Futures.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to bring attention to the ongoing increased risks of wildfires across Manitoba. It's another dry spring, and already we have seen numerous grass fires and a significant wildfire near the Paw and Opaskwayak Cree Nation. Some of these fires occur naturally with lightning strikes, and many fires are also caused by human activity. The operation of vehicles such as ATVs and even lawnmowers have been cause of significant fires in our province. I encourage all Manitobans to be more vigilant when conditions are so dry. It's also important we all do our part to stay informed and be prepared to take action. I urge everyone to take action to prevent fires as current conditions pose a serious threat to public safety, and emergency response may be limited due to high demand on provincial and local firefighting resources. Because of the extreme wildfire risk and rapidly changing fire behavior, we adamantly discourage travel into backcountry areas. Anyone permitted to travel into backcountry are reminded to check weather conditions and have adequate suppression equipment. It's important for everyone to exercise caution when in or near forested areas. Provincial burning permits will not be issued until conditions improve. Further restrictions may be implemented if the fire danger levels increase or if conditions change significantly. Failure to comply with restrictions is a serious offense, may result in prosecution and significant fines. Manitoba's emergency wildfire service and our water bomber fleet are currently deployed and in service. We must all do our part to ensure Manitobans are safe from the impacts of wildfires. I would like to give a shout out to all members of the wildfire service, our emergency firefighters, and members of our water bomber fleet. I also want to give a shout out to the BC wildfire crews that joined the fight as of today. It's proof that we are all in this together. Thank you to our friends at BC for the helping hand. We can all play a critical role in mitigating wildfire risks together by being fire smart and by looking after each other and our communities.
The honourable member for Swan River.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today our hearts are with the families who have been forced to flee their homes, cottages, and communities due to the devastating wildfires burning across our province. We recognize the fear, uncertainty, and grief that comes with such sudden upheaval. To every family displaced in the Paw, Clearwater Lake, Carrot Valley, Wanless, and all affected communities, please know that Manitobans stand with you. The crisis has touched the lives of hundreds. For some, it was a sleepless night of evacuation in flames as flames lit up the horizon. For others, it was escaping through thick smoke and falling ash as they rushed to safety. These stories reflect painfully reality that many are enduring right now. In fact, as we face these fires, we have seen extraordinary courage. I want to extend our deepest gratitude to the firefighters, local and provincial, who are underground risking their lives to protect homes and save lives. To the water bomber pilots flying into thick smoke, the dedicated teams from the Manitoba Wildfire Service, the Office of the Fire Commissioner, Emergency Management Organization, and all our EMO staff. We cannot thank you enough. You've been joined by emergency responders from across the province and soon crews from British Columbia in a united effort to confront these fires. Your tireless service on the front lines are making a vital difference in protecting lives, homes, and entire communities. You deserve our highest respect, and you have our heartfelt appreciation. We also thank the countless volunteers and neighbors who have opened their homes, provided food or comfort to the stranger. You are the spirit of Manitoba, and your compassion doesn't go unnoticed. Let me also take this moment to echo the urgent call from Manitoba Natural Resources and Indigenous Futures Minister. We all have a role to play in preventing further catastrophes. Let us continue to show each other kindness, patience, and support, and let us remain vigilant in protecting our Manitoba, our communities, and most importantly, each other. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It is my absolute pleasure to acknowledge National Nursing Week, which is this week. Our government is always pleased. We're always grateful to have the opportunity to celebrate and thank the amazing nurses working in every corner of our province. Nurses are the backbone of our healthcare system. And this week, during National Nursing Week, we recognize them for going above and beyond and celebrate their passion to provide the best care possible in communities across our great province. Nurses are healthcare heroes, but they are also everyday people. They are the MLA for Tuxedo. They are the Minister of Health. They are our siblings, parents, friends, neighbors, loved ones, community members. They are everyday Manitobans who are a comforting presence during some of people's most precious moments at the bedside and also during some people's most difficult moments. They save lives and they heal entire communities. Nursing can be a difficult career, and there are difficult days, especially after 7.5 years of cuts, chaos, closures, and disrespect by the former PC administration. But what nurses do, Honourable Speaker, even on those difficult days, matters greatly to their patients. They always provide the best care possible with dignity, care, compassion, and respect. During National Nursing Week, and during this day in particular, I think it's important for us to highlight Indigenous nurses. We celebrate National Indigenous Nurses Day, and we want to recognize that Indigenous nurses bring highly skilled, important lived experiences to the front lines of our healthcare system. They provide care in a culturally sensitive manner and are often keenly aware and understanding of the structural barriers that exist for patients in our healthcare system. They are often strong advocates, pushing for equitable access and improving healthcare outcomes. Here in Manitoba, we're seeing increased numbers, record numbers, quite frankly, of nurses, Indigenous nurses training, graduating, and joining the front lines. I want these nurses to know that our government is committed to continuing to support you on your healthcare practitioner journey and investing in making sure that your journey is as positive and successful as possible. Nurses, we celebrate them this week. We should celebrate them each and every day, but not just for what they do on the front lines, Honorable Speaker. We celebrate them for their innovation in research, in policy, and advancing health equity. And this year, given that the theme of National Nursing Week is the power of nurses to transform health, it's very fitting. We get to highlight nurses' impact in shaping healthcare, driving innovation, and advancing patient-centered care. Nurses are leaders. They're change makers and trailblazers in health innovation, and they contribute to advancements in fundamental treatments, technologies, and patient care practices, including as part of our government's lower wait times and system improvement team. Or an event I had the pleasure of attending during Black History Month, a historic Black History Month celebrating Black nursing students at the University of Manitoba. Nurses are doing transformative work in post-secondary, on the front lines, and in research. I'd like to take a moment to also acknowledge that we have some wonderful advocates for nursing in the gallery with us today. The Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba, organizations that lead the way in bringing nurses together and fostering important change. Listening to nurses has allowed our government to take real steps and real action in improving the health care that patients receive, but also the way that health care is provided. We're investing in retention, recruitment, and training. We're investing in nurses. It's so important that we recognize that we have to take better care of the people who take care of us. We're creating pathways back into the healthcare system. We've welcomed nurses back from retirement. We've supported internationally educated nurses through our nurse reentry program. We've expanded the provincial travel nurse team by over 117%, and there's more work being done. These nurses are working in the public system, and we're doing so much work, Honorable Speaker, that it's being noticed outside of our own borders, not just in Manitoba, not just in Canada, but outside of our country. I'm really, really thrilled to take a moment to welcome Sana, who is a nurse from the United States who has joined our healthcare system in the front lines of Manitoba in just the recent months, and she joins us in the gallery here today. Thank you for joining the front lines here in Manitoba, Sana. We welcome you not only in the province, but here in the Manitoba Legislature. Honorable Speaker, we value our nurses. We know the significant knowledge, expertise, and experience they bring to the bedside each and every day. We're going to continue to listen, action, and work together to fix healthcare, improve culture, and ensure we have a healthcare system that all nurses are thrilled to be a part of. Manitoba nurses, to each and every one of you, we thank you, we see you, we lift you up this week and every single week moving forward. Happy National Nursing Week. Thank you.
The honourable member for Roblin.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I just want to also welcome the guests in the gallery today. Nurses are the heart of our healthcare system, and their work changes and saves lives. It would take more than a week to recognize all that they do for our province. Not only are they dedicated professionals, they are passionate community leaders, advocates, and educators. And in particular, I'd like to thank the Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba. I had the pleasure of meeting with them this morning, along with many of our colleagues on this side of the House. And we discussed some of the challenges facing nurses, but these nurses came to the legislature with solutions. They discussed all of the ideas that they have that will improve the working environment for nurses, but also for Manitoba patients, care home residents, home care clients, and others who rely on the services of nurses every day. And they expressed the need to have a seat at every decision-making table when it comes to healthcare. And I think that's so important that nurses are able to provide their perspective. And while I'm proud to stand up today in celebration of such an incredible workforce, I think that quite frankly, nurses have heard enough words. They deserve empowering action and not empty announcements. They deserve safety, not slogans. And they deserve a helping hand, not headaches. It should go without saying, but nurses deserve and need to be able to work without being yelled at, punched, or stabbed while trying to help people. They deserve a safe workplace. And they deserve a government that works on addressing nurses' concerns ahead of varnishing the minister's image. Nurses deserve to see the results from the listening tour they participated in. But unfortunately, just last week, we heard from the head of the Manitoba Nurses Union when she said, quote, "If the government had truly been listening during their listening tour, would we be here again over a year later with no measurable progress? Nurses are beyond tired of the spin, of being used for announcements, campaigns, and photo ops only to be ignored when the decisions are being made." Unquote. They deserve a government that puts solutions ahead of ideology. Just last week, the Premier shot down Bill 227, which would have eliminated some of the interprovincial barriers that prevent nurses from coming to work here in Manitoba, where we need them. Honourable Speaker, nurses simply deserve better from this government that promised them all the solutions. And that is why hundreds rallied at the Legislature last week to give this minister and their government a resounding D-. In response to the heckling from members opposite, yes, I was there. And a D- with 3 NDP MLAs working on the healthcare file is shameful, Honourable Speaker. So to nurses across Manitoba, I want to say thank you. To nurses working in long-term care, in public health, who work in education to graduate the next generation of nurses, who work in ERs, ICUs, and on the units in our hospitals, who work in cancer care, who work in the community, who work at remote nursing stations. Thank you. I know your job isn't easy, and I know the toll that it takes on you and your families. And I want to thank those families as well for giving so much of their loved ones to Manitobans in some of their hardest moments. Happy National Nurses Week.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Honourable Speaker, I ask for leave to respond to the minister's statement.
Does the honourable member for Tyndall Park have leave? Agreed. The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. National Nursing Week takes place from May 12th to 18th, and this year's theme is the power of nurses to transform health. Manitobans know the impact that nurses have in providing and shaping healthcare, driving innovation, and advocating for patient-centered needs. As it is International Nurses Day today, we come together to recognize nurses from across Manitoba for their incredible hard work, long hours, and big hearts. Their drive truly demonstrates such dedication to the health of all Manitobans receiving their care. Honourable Speaker, over the past decade, nurses have been stretched to unfair and extreme limits. They are often facing violence and individuals with complex mental health needs without the adequate support and staffing to do so. We frequently hear stories where nurses are being verbally threatened, physically assaulted, and left in tears after their shifts, not because they don't care, but because they care so deeply in a system that isn't caring for them. I want to thank those who have joined us today here in the gallery. And Honourable Speaker, I ask that my colleagues join me in recognizing and thanking all nurses throughout our province for their abilities and commitment to all of us.
Prior to moving on, there's some guests in the gallery that have to leave us right away. So we have seated in the public gallery from Gordon Bell School 30 grade 9 students under the direction of Alana Ollinger, and they're guests of the honourable member for Wolseley, and we all welcome you here today. And seated in the loge to my right, we have Carrie Irvin Ross, former member for Fort Garry, Fort Richmond, and we welcome you here today. Member statements. The Honourable Minister of Business, Mining, Trade and Job Creation.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to celebrate a group of exceptional women whose determination, talent, and perseverance are reshaping what leadership and excellence looks like here in our community. The Women in Aviation program are mastering complex technical skills, pushing personal boundaries, and stepping into roles traditionally not made with them in mind. Many had never imagined themselves in aviation, yet today they are thriving as mechanics, inspectors, engineers, and change makers. This is about transformation and women boldly shaping their futures and, in doing so, becoming powerful role models for others. They are showing young girls across Manitoba that every path is open and that they too can thrive in fields that they choose and lead with confidence wherever they go. Behind their success is a team of powerful leaders, Barb Bowen, Carolyn Seacat, Darcy Radley, whose mentorship and vision have helped open doors and guide the way forward. Thanks to their support, the women in this program have stepped directly into full-time roles where they continue to grow and lead. Meeting and getting to hear experiences of several of these trailblazing women, it is remarkable to see the positive impact this opportunity has had on their lives. To every woman who took this leap, your strength and brilliance are building a better Manitoba. So I ask my colleagues to join me in applauding Carolyn Seacat, lead technical trainer and program curriculum coordinator, who joins us here in the gallery today. Thank you so much.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, it is with great pride and honour that I stand here today to wish Manitoba a very, very happy birthday. It was on this day 155 years ago that our great province in the heart of Canada received royal assent to join the Canadian Confederation. As someone born in a different province and chose to make Manitoba home, I can say with a full heart that Manitoba is the greatest province in the greatest country on earth. Manitoba is the hub of both cultural and natural beauty that people from all over the world come to explore. We are the home of Neil Young and the Northern Lights. Our history is profound and groundbreaking. Manitoba is the homeland of the Red River Métis Nation and the first province to recognize women's right to vote. It is within these lands that people have crossed oceans and continents to plant their roots here. Early settlers, like Icelandic immigrants, Mennonites, and voyageurs, sought Manitoba for economic opportunity, religious freedoms, and a hope for a better life. And Manitoba continues to be a beacon for hope for so many, Honourable Speaker. From our lakes and parks and incredible wildlife, to the Jets, Go Jets Go, to the Bombers and Jazz Festival, to all the amazing people, the kind of people you won't find anywhere else, there is no place like friendly Manitoba, Honourable Speaker. Let's work together to grow this province and unleash all of its beautiful potential. Just as the Red and Assiniboine rivers unite in the heart of our capital, let us all unite to create an even better Manitoba. Honourable Speaker, I am so proud to be a Manitoban. Thank you.
The Honourable Minister for Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to highlight a powerful example of community, culture, and reconciliation in action, the Powwow Club in the Louis Riel School Division. This club welcomes all students from kindergarten to grade 12 and brings together families, educators, and community members from across the division. It is not just a club, it is a space for learning, for belonging, and for celebration. With guidance from parents, guardians, elders, knowledge keepers, and community members, students learn powwow dancing, regalia making, and engage in interactive activities to learn Indigenous languages. Each child has the opportunity to gain wisdom, express their identity, and connect to a living culture. By year's end, they are honored at the LRSD graduation powwow. Dancing in regalia, they helped create, recognized as powwow dancers. But Powwow Club is about more than skills. It's about reconnection. It's about reclaiming community through tradition. In this circle, generations gather to share stories, teachings, and laughter. It is a space that empowers our next generation to live boldly, rooted in culture and community. The Powwow Club shows reconciliation in action. Indigenous students are supported in their identity. Non-Indigenous students are welcome to learn with respect. All students walk away with a deeper sense of belonging and understanding. I'm grateful for the educators, families, elders, and community members who make this possible, and especially the students, whose commitment and spirit bring this circle to life. The Powwow Club reminds us, when we make space for Indigenous knowledge, we all grow stronger. When young people are proud of who they are and where they come from, we all move forward together. I ask all members to join me in recognizing the members of the Powwow Club who have joined us in the gallery today, and that their names be added to Hansard. Thank you, merci, miigwech.
The honourable member for Brandon West.
It is an honor to stand in the Manitoba Legislature today as we celebrate an incredible milestone, 60 years of impact, generosity, and vision from the Brandon and Area Community Foundation. I'm proud to recognize the Executive Director, Ms. Laura Kempthorne, and Chairperson of the Board, Mr. Mark Allain, who join us in the gallery here today. Since its inception, with a $25,000 donation from Joseph and Gwen Sector, the Brandon Area Community Foundation has grown exponentially, now stewarding $26 million in assets and awarding over $1 million in grants annually. Under the exceptional leadership of the Executive Director, Laura Kempthorne, and a dedicated Board of Directors, Brandon Area Community Foundation has been a force of positive change. Their work has strengthened local organizations and empowered communities through transformative initiatives like Youth in Philanthropy, which has awarded $240,000 in grants since its founding 20 years ago by the late Kay Dobson Galetz. What truly sets Brandon Area and Community Foundation apart is the way it fosters connections, uniting donors, volunteers, and organizations under a shared vision for a thriving future. Whether supporting seniors through the Technology Access Program, enhancing education at Assiniboine College Practical Nursing Program with the donation of mannequins, improving key infrastructure like the Westman Centennial Auditorium speaker system, or initiatives like those at the Brandon YMCA and Ashley Neufeld Softball Complex, Brandon and Area Community Foundation's impact resonates today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. As we reflect on this remarkable journey, let us look forward with optimism and determination. To Laura and the board, thank you, and to everybody who contributes to this foundation for your dedication, your passion, and belief in power of community. Congratulations on 60 years, and here's to many more years of making a difference.
The honourable member for St. Boniface.
Merci, l'honorable président. Aujourd'hui, nous célébrons la création de notre grande province, le Manitoba. Honourable Speaker, today we celebrate the creation of our great province, Manitoba. This place that we call home was founded after the Hudson's Bay Company sold Rupert's Land to the Dominion of Canada without consulting the Indigenous peoples. In protest of the decision, the Red River Métis leader Louis Riel founded the first provisional government in 1869. The provisional government was instrumental to creating what we know now as Manitoba, as it was 40 Métis officials who wrote the lists of rights which formed the foundation of the Manitoba Act. The Manitoba Act was then given royal assent on this very day 155 years ago, May 12, 1870, creating the province that all of us call home. The Act then had to travel back to the Red River Valley and was proclaimed on July 15th, which was the day we joined Canada as the 5th province after it was agreed upon by the provisional government of Louis Riel and the Red River Métis. Our shared history, both as Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, is apparent in the creation of our province. Even the name of our province, Manitoba, comes from the Anishinaabe-Moan phrase, Manitoba Abi, which refers to the Great Spirit. Aujourd'hui, nous rappelle qu'il est important de réfléchir à la création de notre province et de tirer les enseignements de cette histoire pour guider notre avenir. de la création du premier gouvernement provisoire sous la direction de Louis Riel jusqu'à l'histoire que notre gouvernement écrit de façon journalière, nous avons tous la responsabilité de continuer à faire rayonner notre belle province. So as the House joins me in celebrating the history, beauty, and foundation of the great province that we call home, Manitoba, thank you, merci, miigwech.
Prior to oral questions, there are more guests in the gallery I would like to introduce. Draw attention of all honorable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Fred Hill, leading influence Saskatchewan chaplain, Major Karen Hoft from the Salvation Army, Sherry Dick, leading influence, Demelza Martin, leading influence, Samuel Dorskin, Focus of Family, Corey Friesen, Lakeview Insurance, Jeff Friesen, HSD Chair, Elaine Kayer, Bethel Selkirk Organization, Marie Kerr, Bethel Selkirk Organization, and they are here as guests of the Honourable Member for Fort Richmond. We welcome you here today. Further, in the public gallery, we have with us today for National Nursing Week, Abigail Kawazda, Victoria Charsky, Shelley Anderson, Joyce Johnson, Kayla Evans, Marie Lugar, Shanna Heller Haikila, who are guests of the Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors, Long-Term Care, the Honourable Member for Union Station, and we welcome you all here today. Oral questions, the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, let's be very clear. Our PC caucus is supportive of local journalism here in Manitoba. However, the Premier thinks he can make a unilateral announcement. He claims to be an all-party committee with no consultation from anyone else in this chamber other than his own caucus. The Premier puts out a release, puts on a smile, takes a picture, does not make it true. Why did the Premier put out a misleading press release, once again playing games with Manitobans?
The Honourable First Minister.
Honourable Speaker, I want to wish everybody a happy Manitoba Day, a happy Nursing Week, a happy Allied Healthcare Professional Week, and of course, a happy National Police Week. And I would be remiss if I didn't also announce that today is the first ever International You Can't Kick the Puck into the Net Awareness Day.
That's right. That's right.
I welcome the friendly question from the members opposite. Give us the member for Borderlands. Let's get to work. Let's figure out how do we support local journalism initiatives across this great province. We know that you, the people of Manitoba, use newspapers, radio, online portals to stay informed. There's a long tradition, if the member wanted to turn to his right and ask about the All-Party Committee on Organ Donation, of having this. And when it came to consultation, we brought it to the House. What more do you want? Let's get to work. I know you don't like to work, took 6 months off, but let's get down to it. That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Manitobans, you can see it once again. I asked the Premier a very serious question about journalism and freedom of speech, and what does he do? He makes jokes. That's who he is. Honourable Speaker, PC's introduced an amendment to the committee that this Premier is talking about. It called for coverage of all faiths, races, and cultures, so long as hate speech is not permitted. Rather than debating our amendment on supporting all local journalism, like this Premier said, bring it to the House, it was brought to the House. Why is the Premier dodging and going around this legislature when an amendment was before the floor? What words in our amendment did the Premier object to?
Order, please. I would just remind the First Minister when answering questions to make sure he directs his comments through the chair and not directly to members opposite. The Honourable First Minister.
You're scared. Okay.
Honorable First Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. There is no substance to their objection.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Cultural media. Let's do it. Different languages. Let's make it happen. Let's talk to Golden West. Yeah. Did you run this by Golden West before you're doing your little temper tantrum, I would say, through you, the chair? Again, let's get to work. Yeah. We think that there's a ton of tools that we have to support journalism here in Manitoba. There's advertising that the core of government does. There's advertising that crown corporations do. There's notice requirements that municipalities and others have to fulfill. All of these are resources that go out to support the journalism ecosystem. Again, the proper place to do this is by having hearings in every region of the province. Yeah. We're extending that hand across the aisle. Work. Yeah, if you bring forward a critique without a substantive point behind it, Honorable Speaker, I will crack a joke at your expense. But when it comes down to supporting local journalism, let's take the politics out of it and get down to work.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Honourable Speaker and Manitobans, you heard it right there. This Premier thinks it's a temper tantrum when our PCs brought forward an amendment for all races, all religions, all cultures to be addressed in this committee, and he calls that a temper tantrum. That is the quality of your Premier right here. Let's look up at the makeup of this committee, Honourable Speaker. It could be the farthest thing from an all-party committee. PCs weren't consulted about this, the Liberal MLA wasn't consulted about this, and the independent member wasn't consulted about this. So how is this an all-party committee when he only consulted his own NDP caucus, Honourable Speaker? Why does this Premier think he can bully and force other members of this Legislative Assembly into a committee that they were not even told about?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, it's an all-party committee because, like every all-party committee in the history of Manitoba, it has the different parties represented. Yeah. Yes, it does. There are two formally recognized parties here, and there is membership open to both of those parties. When it comes to the comment, the temper tantrum, well, what I'm getting at there is that the members opposite have known about this since last year. Yeah. There's no big surprise here. What happened when we brought it to the House? They talked it out. For what substantive reason? There is no substantive reason. You want to bring forward issues around cultural media, different languages? Great. Show up at committee. Send us a member for Borderland. He used to work at committee. But no, they don't want the member for Borderland to get to work. They would rather have spectacle and smoke rather than bringing forward any fire in question, period. Yeah. So what are we going to do? We're going to keep fixing healthcare. We're going to keep making the economy more affordable. Yeah. And yeah, we'll get to work on journalism too. The question is, when are the PCs going to join us on the issues that matter to you?
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
Honourable Speaker, last week Winnipeggers started getting their property tax bills in the mail. And what did Manitobans find out when they did it? That the Minister of Finance and this Premier had misled them. Oh. Many of them have reached out to say what the Minister and the Premier are saying is not matching what's on their bill. One family in the RM of St. Clement's reached out saying that their bill has skyrocketed. What does this Premier have to say to the family in St. Clement that has seen their bill jump 24.7% under this Canoe government?
Whoa.
The Honourable First Minister.
What I say to that family and to every family across Manitoba is we're so excited to go to work for you each and every day. That's right. 100% of families in our province are better off because you have a government that values education. That's right. You have a government that's delivered a universal school food program, which is an investment in the kids today who are now going to be able to graduate, but it's also an investment in our economy and public safety a generation from now, when those lifetime outcomes will be curved towards the more positive direction. When we're talking about saving you money, there's good news there too. $1,500 this year in terms of a tax credit on your property taxes. Next year, it's going up. $1,600 is the amount that you're going to be saving. So again, the members opposite received a $500,000 handout from the Stephenson government to his own private business interest. We're not doing things like that, so that's why he's mad. Instead, we're spending that money on you.
Time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
Honorable Speaker, you can see the Premier again once ducked and dodged that question about the 24.7% increase on that family in St. Clement. Is the Premier calling that family liars? Because I'm pretty sure they sent us an invoice or a tax bill for 24.7% increase. Honorable Speaker, it's simple. What does the Premier have to say to the family in St. Clement that received a tax bill with an increase of 24.7%?
Wow. The Honourable First Minister.
Well, Honourable Speaker, I'll repeat the very specific answer that I gave because I think it covers off that follow-up question as well. 100% of families in Manitoba are better off because we have a government today that is making real investments in our children and grandchildren by way of the education system. And when it comes to saving you money, $1,500. $1,500 doesn't seem like much when you get $500K free from the Stephenson government, but for hard-working, blue-collar, average, everyday Manitobans, $1,500 is still a lot of money. But we weren't done there. $1,600 next year. You want to talk about the economy? The member opposite thanked Donald Trump. Trump's tariffs are the biggest threat to our economy. Before he wants to raise these economic issues in the House, perhaps he'd like to distance himself from the Trump gratitude tour. Meantime, what are we up to? Fixing healthcare, making your life more affordable, $1,500 more in your pocket this year, $1,600 more for you next year.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
Oh, Honourable Speaker, just my second week on the job, and you can see the Premier is already crumbling. You can see he's already crumbling. You can see that he wants to talk about anybody else's past, but he won't talk about his own past. I don't think the Premier wants to go down that path, Honourable Speaker. The increases are even more severe within the City of Winnipeg, where municipality taxation experts are saying 132,000 properties will see their tax bills jump. 132,000 properties will see their tax bill go up under this canoe government and this NDP. The Premier talks a big game and has an even bigger smile for Manitobans, but all he's doing is jacking up their taxes. Why is the Premier standing by incorrect figures? Will he fire his finance minister today? Yes or no?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, I'll overcome my aversion to the PC's new anti-smiling platform and point out the following. Manitoba's got the best finance minister in the country. He's going to stick around for a long, long, long time. That's right. When it comes to property taxes, $1,500. That's what we're saving you. $1,600 is what it's going to be going up to next year. Now, of course, the members opposite get in again. There's a lot to lose. There's a lot at risk. $1,500 this year, $1,600 next year. But the member opposite, the Trump tariff thank you, it doesn't make any sense when you're talking about affordability. And it's not just that he said that on the podcast. He came in here in his first week as the opposition leader. 6 more times he said thank you to Donald Trump. It's right there in Hansard. Why would you make the mistake to thank Donald Trump once and then come into here on the permanent record and say thank you to Donald Trump 6 more times? Well, he debates that. There's no debate about this.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Midland.
Honourable Speaker, the facts are coming out and the tax bills are hitting Winnipeg families' homes. We're talking 132,200 properties in Winnipeg that are worse off under this NDP government. One family reached out to share their home in Waverley has seen a $1,300 increase to their education taxes. Why is this minister targeting families in Waverley with higher taxes?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. This team, this Premier, this government is lowering costs for Manitobans, and we're doing that work every single day. You know, Honourable Speaker, the PCs like to have really high fuel taxes. What do? We offered a holidays for a year, and now we've introduced a 10% permanent cut. They like to increase costs on renters. What do? We increase the size of the tax credit for renters. They like sky-high hydro rates. We like to keep them low. That's the work our government is doing. And when it comes to school taxes, our government has focused on doing what we can to make sure school taxes are low. That's why with our first budget, we brought in that $1,500 school tax rebate, and our most recent budget brought in a $600 $1,600 rebate, raising that by $100. This team understands the importance of making life more affordable.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Midland on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, this minister has had 4 days since we asked these questions last week to do his homework. Under the NDP, this hardworking family in Waverley is receiving $1,500 versus the $2,400 it would have received under the PC education rebate. Wow. Clearly, this family is not better off under this NDP government. The City of Winnipeg has identified almost 50% of properties in the City of Winnipeg are worse off thanks to this NDP. This is just one example of a family that's worse off under this minister. How many other hardworking families in Waverley is this minister targeting with his tax hikes?
Here. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, we're making life more affordable. We know that the Department of Finance clarifies that with our $1,600 rebate, again, almost 80% of Manitobans will be better off than they were under the measure from the former government. That's a fact. You know, beyond that, of course, again, we're not only bringing in those savings, we also brought in personal income tax changes that lower costs for Manitobans. We increased the basic personal exemption. We changed the brackets. So we're saving money for Manitobans on their personal income taxes, in addition to the long list of other measures we brought in over the last 2 budgets, including, of course, free park passes for a year, hydro rate freeze. We brought in our universal school nutrition program. We continue to do the work. They made life more expensive. We're making life more affordable.
The honourable member for Midland on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, let's repeat. 132,200 properties that are worse off in the City of Winnipeg under this NDP government. That is 50% of properties that are receiving higher taxes thanks to this NDP government. Not only did this family in Waverley's tax bill skyrocket, their rebate decreased. If the minister refuses to answer, then why doesn't the member for Waverley stand up and answer to this family as why he is allowing his premier and his finance minister to hike taxes on those families in Waverley?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Let it go. Let the top one.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thanks, Honourable Speaker. Look, we know that the members opposite like making life more expensive for Manitobans. They did that over 7.5 years. They did that in all sorts of new and creative ways, like they did with their hydro rate increases, which they included in bits of bills, where Manitobans had no opportunity to know whether or not that hydro rate increase was needed or not, because they tried to circumvent the pub. That's their record, moving forward in a way that lacks transparency. That's what they did over 7.5 years. What are we doing? We brought forward a long list of affordability measures to keep life affordable for Manitobans. Not just for Manitobans, though, even for small businesses. We brought in, of course, measures that we know are going to keep their costs low, with a reduction to the payroll tax so they can keep doing the important work they do of creating jobs and growing our economy. This government will continue to do the work of making life more.
The honourable member for Lakeside.
Honourable Speaker, not only are the NDP jacking up people's tax bills, they don't even have the courage to do it themselves. They're forcing municipalities to be the bad guys and send out the news. Taxes are going up, rebates are going down, as my colleague from Midland has already shown. And now the Minister of Municipal Relations wants you to blame the messenger. Why is the minister putting our municipal officials in the position of delivering bad news about taxes they didn't even impose?
The Honourable Minister, Municipal and Northern Relations.
Mayors, Reeves, councillors, I can tell you I know how you felt for 7.5 years. 7.5 months it took them to ask me a question. I mean, they ignored you then, and now they're ignoring you in the House. They stand up with all this indignation and they say, what's going on? How come you're making someone else do the dirty work? We are actually doing the work. We are investing in municipalities. We sending out that One Manitoba Growth and Renewal Fund, $62.5 million, and they get up here and have the gall to say it's nothing? Get a grip.
The honourable member for Lakeside.
Honourable Speaker, They say that they're ignoring the Association of Manitoba Municipalities. The very people this minister claims to work with passed a resolution calling for an overhaul of how education is funded. They want education taxes off the municipal property tax bill because they know it's unfair and unsustainable. Why won't this government listen to municipalities and finally reform a broken system that ties school funding to rise property values?
The Honourable Minister, Municipal and Northern Relations.
Municipalities want schools that thrive, right? They don't want to be going out there and blaming the bad government. What they want to do is they want investments in their schools. That's what they say. And what I would say, you know, I'm going to table this for the opposition. In March, we tabled our budget. A budget, and the next day in the Brandon Sun, they said budget brings benefit to Westman. Those Westman MLAs got up the next day and said there's nothing in it for Westman. Who do we have to believe? The paper of record, or the people on the other side talking about all these other things? It's bluster. It's not.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Lakeside on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, Manitoba is the only province in Canada that still funds education through property taxes collected by municipalities. Having a valuable property does not necessarily correlate with the ability to pay. Adding the additional burden of misplaced tax on struggling Manitoba families only drives housing insecurity. Will the minister work with his colleagues and remove education funding for property tax bills, just like the previous PC government was working towards?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal and Northern Affairs.
Yes, I'll work with my colleagues in building schools in your community. Brandon, Neepawa, St. Anne, all over Winnipeg. We'll actually get these things built. We'll actually invest in schools. We'll actually invest in kids. We'll actually do the work that those educators and those school boards have been begging for. And finally, they have a partner at the table. We'll work with the Association of Manitoba Municipalities. That's why we've invested $42 million in Manitoba Growth, in communities like St. Laurent, like Verdun, like Boissevain, like Rivers, like Minnedosa. Those are all constituencies held by the opposition.
Member's time has expired. Order. The Honourable Member for Springfield-Rashad.
This week, the Canoe government sent out the NDP education tax hike bills. All the same time, families from Kildonan and River East want to enroll their children in sports, dance, and music for summer programs. What advice does the member for Kildonan and River East have for her constituents? Do families pay for youth activities or the NDP education tax hike bill? Which one?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, for years, the members opposite made life more expensive for Manitobans, and they also made life harder. Whether that was raising costs on Manitobans, again, in new and creative ways, or making cuts to every single thing we care about as Manitobans. So we know for years they cut education, they set our kids back. We know for years they cut healthcare, they cut nurses, they gave zeros to almost the entire civil service for years in a row and made life harder. We're moving the province ahead. Finally, Manitobans have a government that's focused on their best interests, and we're working to get the job done, funding education, fixing healthcare, and while we do it, continuing to make life more affordable. Almost 80% of Manitobans are better off thanks to the measure we brought in, and that's a fact. And we're going to keep making life more affordable every single day.
The Honourable Member for Springfield-Rashad on a supplementary question.
Thanks to the previous PC government, Kildonan and River East has amazing sports and dance programming available to families. Gateway Community Centre, Garden City Sports Complex, LA Dance Academy, to mention a few. Can the MLA for Kildonan and River East give advice to families in her community Should
Order.
families in Kildonan River East enroll in sports or dance or music, or should they pay for the NDP education tax hike bill? Which one?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
If the member does want to provide any helpful advice to his constituent, I would encourage him to look at the list of 25 things we're doing to make life more affordable for Manitobans. And I'm happy to read those off for him. Again, permanent cut to the gas tax, 10%, free park passes for a year, a hydro rate freeze, a universal school nutrition program, a $1,600 homeowner affordability tax credit, free birth control, more coverage for menopause. We doubled the fertility tax credit. We doubled the prenatal benefit. Wow. We increased the renter's tax credit, which they reduced so that renters would have to pay more money in Manitoba. They took us backwards. We're moving us ahead. Hey!
The Honourable Member for Springfield Rashad.
So 2 questions and the member still hasn't answered, so we'll continue. Perhaps this is the one. Thanks to the previous PC government, both River East Collegiate and West Kildonan Collegiate offer great sports programming. Now families are looking to continue by enrolling in the FC Northwest or Phoenix soccer clubs. Unfortunately, families in Kildonan River East have had hard choices to make this summer. The choice for some will be summer youth activities or the NDP education tax hike bill. Can the MLA for Kildonan River East advise? Should families choose activities for their children or pay the NDP tax bill? Which one?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Again, if the member opposite wants to give more advice to the constituent, he can tell that constituent that our government has done the important work of stopping the millions of dollars of checks that they were sending to Bay Street instead of having that go to our education system. And I'm happy to know I get feedback on how that conversation goes. And in the meantime, the work continues. This team continues to focus on making life more affordable. And we're very proud to say that, again, our budgets, both of the budgets we released, focused on the everyday affordability challenges Manitobans are facing, whether it's their cost of energy or otherwise. We're doing that work, and we're going to do that work every day because this team, every member of this team is focused on making life more affordable. They made life more expensive. We know which way we're going. We're going to make life cheaper for all Manitobans.
Great job.
The Honourable Member for Roblin.
Honourable Speaker, it's Allied Health Professionals Week, so there's no better time for the Minister of Health to address the fact that 93% of paramedics in Winnipeg say they've experienced violence on the job, and 71% have seriously considered quitting. Over a year ago, the Minister of Health promised more paramedics. Where are they?
Good question.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, I find it really interesting that during Allied Healthcare Professional Week, instead of standing up in this House and apologizing for her role in driving 90 paramedics out of our healthcare system by advising Heather Stephenson to cut healthcare and turn her back on rural healthcare and rural paramedics, instead of standing up and apologizing for that, she's asking our government, why aren't you doing the work of cleaning up our mess faster? Well, I'll tell you what, we are doing the work of cleaning up the mess that they made in the 7.5 years of damaging our healthcare system. On this side of the House, we have 168 net new allied healthcare professionals on the front lines. We know there's much, much more to do. We're committed to doing that work.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Roblin on a supplementary question.
The Minister knows that the allied healthcare professionals they're referring to are not all paramedics. I'll remind the Minister they promised 90 new paramedics in 2024. We're now well into 2025. How many net new paramedics has the Minister added to the healthcare system?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
Honourable Speaker, not only have we added net new paramedics to the front lines of our healthcare system, but our government has added emergency medical response folks to the front lines of our healthcare system. We work directly with AMM. We work directly with rural Manitobans and leaders to make sure that we could have emergency responders attending to Manitobans in need who have that basic training, first aid and other skills that are needed to provide care in Manitoba's most vulnerable moments. They've been asking for that for years. 7.5 years, in fact, but the previous PC government turned their backs on rural Manitobans and wouldn't work with the leadership. They brought forward a resolution. Our government listed. We've made that policy change, and now they can practice in our health on the front lines of our healthcare system.
Hear, hear.
The honourable member for Roblin on a final supplementary question.
The minister still hasn't answered the question, so I'll answer it for them for the benefit of Manitobans. Of the 90 new paramedics they promised to hire last year, they've hired 14. Wow. How does the minister justify hitting just 15% of their own hiring target?
Wow. The honourable minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care. The honourable minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care.
I want to be clear, Honourable Speaker, what the member opposite just said. Under the former PC government, with her advising the former health minister and former premier Heather Stephenson, they drove 90 paramedics out of our healthcare system. They wouldn't allow them to train or practice advanced care paramedicine across rural Manitoba. Our government is hiring net new, for the first time in years, net new paramedics across our province. We're meeting with these graduates. We're giving them a letter of offer in their hands for a job in this province, something they never saw under the failed PCs. So yes, Honourable Speaker, we have a lot of work to do to fix the damage that member and members opposite did for 7.5 years. And we wish it were going faster, but we're doing the work each and every day. We're making progress, much more to do, and we're doing that for Manitobans because we respect them, we love healthcare, and we love this province.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The government has announced the formation of an all-party committee to explore the future of local journalism in Manitoba. However, the proposed composition includes 4 members of the NDP caucus and only 2 from the PC caucus, with no representation from independent MLAs. This structure raises concerns about the committee's ability to function as a truly nonpartisan body that reflects the diverse voices of our province. Will this government commit to revisiting the committee's composition to ensure equitable representation so that the committee's work genuinely reflects a collaborative all-party effort?
The Honourable First Minister.
Local journalism is a public good. It's something that Manitobans rely on to hold, yes, governments, but powerful people in general to account. It's something that is used to celebrate the young people in our communities who achieve great things in sports or in school. And it's something that we use to notify each other about the times where we want to come together and celebrate, whether that's the anniversary like we're celebrating with Manitoba today of a significant milestone, or perhaps it's an achievement like that Stanley Cup parade that we hope will be celebrated in Manitoba someday soon. Now, it's a shame to see members opposite on various parties of the House asking questions when they've had the opportunity to engage with this all-party committee since last year, but that's fine. The point is this: let's sit down at the table, hear from Manitobans about what they believe in journalism, and then get to work recommending solutions.
The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a supplementary question.
Local journalism serves as a vital platform for many diverse communities across Manitoba. Currently, the Journalism Committee lacks provisions for consulting with these communities and the media outlets that serve them, risking the exclusion of important perspectives. How does the government plan to ensure that Journalism Committee actively engages with and includes input from diverse media voices, particularly those representing marginalized and cultural communities, to create a comprehensive and inclusive strategy for supporting local journalism?
The Honourable First Minister.
Yeah, what the member is describing is the work of the committee. Travel around the province, go to the Pembina Valley, and ask people there. So, Golden West does a great job of serving you through the online platforms and the radio stations in this region, right? And I'm sure people in the Pembina Valley, Steinbach, the Central Plains will say enthusiastically, yes. Other parts of the province will go there, perhaps in Dauphin. You got the radio and online, but there you got a community newspaper as well too. When we go to the north, Indigenous language media, Indigenous language publications. Here and in many other parts of the province, other cultural communities, faith-based media as well too. Let's get to work and bring everybody around the table so that we can go out to hear from Manitobans about which media outlets are serving you and how you think we, as your provincial government, can work together with those organizations to ensure that you continue getting the unbiased, well-supported, and public good serving information.
Time has expired. The honourable member for Tyndall Park on a final supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, transparency and accountability are cornerstones of a healthy democracy, and local journalism plays a crucial role in upholding these principles. The proposed Journalism Committee must embody these values, not only in its objectives, but also in its own operations and mandate. What specific measures will this government implement to guarantee that the Journalism Committee operates with full transparency and accountability, including public reportings of findings and stakeholder engagement to reinforce public trust in the government's commitment to supporting local journalism?
The Honourable First Minister.
Well, I think the most important step is we've invited the opposition in to draft the recommendations. I'm pretty sure that they're going to come into question period high on their horses once again if those recommendations are not being shared with the public. So the members opposite, again, don't have a substantive objection to the All-Party Journalism Committee. Yeah. They just want to come forward and light their hair on fire, as they do on any number of issues on a given day. But here's the real substantive work that we're doing. We know that there's a public good here that needs to be served, that the market is failing to address in a sustainable way. That is the role of government to step up and address. So we are going to do so. We are going to be very patient with the members opposite, and we continue to have that hand outstretched for them to come forward. I really wonder whether the media organizations in their respective backyards are on board with the questions that they've asked here today. I don't think that they are. Again, we will be very patient because our objective
First
is not
time has expired. The honourable member for St. Boniface.
Honourable Speaker, I'm pleased to share it's National Police Week, a week to honour law enforcement across Manitoba and across Canada. For 7.5 painful years, Manitobans had a PC government that froze funding to law enforcement. But our government is supporting law enforcement, giving them more tools to fight toxic drugs and violence in our communities. Will the Minister of Justice tell us about the importance of honouring National Police Week?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Honourable Speaker, on behalf of our government, I'm honoured to extend a huge thank you to everyone that's working in law enforcement in all corners of this province. As part of our commitment to be tough on crime and tough on the causes of crime, we'll never return to the days of funding freezes where law enforcement is disrespected year over year. We'll continue to invest in public safety. National Police Week is an important chance for us to recognize and honor our police officers here in Manitoba. To all those who put your lives on the line every single day to protect and serve our communities, we will never be able to say thank you enough.
The honourable member for Portage-La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, the minister opposed 24-hour security guards at Oak Tree Towers, but the residents would not take no for an answer. Honourable Speaker, how many community safety officer, fire department, and RCMP calls have occurred since the minister listened to those residents?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. Safety and security in our Manitoba housing buildings is a top priority for this government. Members on the opposite side, when they were in government, they cut tenant service coordinators, they cut security services in these very buildings. We'll take no lessons from members opposites. Since we've come into government, we've invested $5.2 million into Oak Tree Towers. And I'll share more in my next answer.
The honourable member for Portage-La Prairie.
Honourable Speaker, because people deserve an answer, let me help the minister with their portfolio. I table Portage Online article that did the math for the zero calls for fire.
Order, please. Order. The Honourable Minister of Families, come to order, please. The Honourable Member for Portage-La Prairie.
It was 19 before security guards were in place. Zero calls for community safety officers, where before it was multiple calls per day. Many, many less RCMP calls, can the minister explain why they are cutting 24-hour security guards effective June 4th?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Well, what I could tell that member is those members or those residents from Oak Tree Towers were banging on their doors since 2021 with no answer. We've come to the table, we've put in a shatterproof door at the front door, we put in security cameras, we put in key card access. That's what's brought those numbers down. We've been working with the mayor, we've been working with the Winnipeg Police, we've been working with fire and paramedics. We'll take no lessons from members opposite who can't work collaboratively with anybody. They like to light everything on fire and fearmonger. We'll take no lessons from members opposite. We'll continue to work with those residents, with the mayor, with fire and police.
The Honourable Member for Portage La Prairie on a final supplementary
Honourable
question.
Speaker, I just want to make it clear that Oak Tree Towers is in Portage La Prairie. I met with the residents last week, and though it doesn't meet the formatting requirements to be tabled as a petition, I wanted to table the calls to action residents wrote themselves. Honourable Speakers, residents are demanding that the minister immediately reinstate security guards and make it permanent. Will they listen to the residents? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addiction and Homelessness.
Which, Honourable Speaker, and I don't know where that member thinks that the security guards have gone. The security guards are still there. We've put shatterproof front doors in. We've put key card access in, we've put security cameras in there, and this work has started a long time ago, as soon as we got into government. They were knocking on that former failed government's door, asking for these improvements for years to no avail. We'll take no lessons from that government. In fact, they're holding up a bill, Bill 12, which in fact would save housing. Do they want to sell that Oak Tree Tower housing? Will that member answer that question?
The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Last week, I asked the Justice Minister to stand behind his inaction on bail. He failed to answer once again. Can the minister advise how many repeat offenders he has released to reoffend again under his failed bail reform non-plan?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, Honourable Speaker, I'm happy to report to the House that not only is our 5-point bail plan starting to see results, but we're also building off of the success of the electronic monitoring program. Of course, these are the ankle bracelets that the members opposite cut when they were in government, cut that program completely. And so, of course, we've invested in that program. I can report to the House, Honourable Speaker, we've got 100 of these ankle bracelets out in community. They're keeping people safe. We're going to keep taking action with the National Police Federation's recommendations. We're going to continue to push the federal government, and we're going to make our communities safer every single day.
The time for oral questions has expired. Order. Petitions. The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba.
Order.
The background to this petition is as follows.
Order. Speaker standing. So I would ask members to kindly quit hollering across the way. Someone is trying to speak, I can't hear them. So I need to be able to hear what people are saying, so I would ask members to please quit hollering back across the way from all sides. The Honourable Minister of Families, the Speaker is still standing. The Honourable Member for Brandon West.
Thank you for always guiding us properly, Honourable Speaker. The background to this petition is as follows. Number one, on May 1st, 2022, Jordan Reimer, 24 years of age, was killed by an impaired driver while she was acting as a designated driver. Number two, there are two people legally culpable for her death: the impaired driver and the accomplice. The driver was charged, but the second criminal, the accomplice, has not been held accountable. Number three, a concerned citizen took the keys from the impaired driver earlier in the evening to ensure he could not drive impaired. The accomplice retrieved the keys from the citizen under false pretenses and knowingly provided the impaired driver with access to the vehicle. Number four, the Winnipeg Police Services, WPS, investigation provided adequate evidence to meet the charging standards and recommended charges be laid against the accomplice. The Crown prosecutors declined to proceed to prosecute the accomplice. Number five, the family of Jordan Reimer has called for the prosecution of the accomplice and that the decision to not prosecute be reviewed independently. Number six, as recently as 2022, there is precedent to refer criminal files of decisions to not proceed with prosecution to extra-provincial departments of justice for review. This was done in the Peter Nygaard file, which ultimately led to a reversal in the decision to not prosecute, and charges were laid. Number seven, an out-of-province review is supported by MAD Canada, MAD Manitoba, and by Manitobans. Number eight, the family has exhausted every avenue within the existing system, and in the absence of a prescribed process when a disagreement exists on charging standards, the only option is to request an independent out-of-province review. Number nine, in December 2024, the WPS reported an alarming number of impaired drivers in the holiday check stop program. Extending criminal culpability beyond the driver to those who engage in overt actions to facilitate impaired driving will save lives. Number 10, Manitobans deserve to have confidence in the provincial government and justice systems to make decisions that achieve true justice for victims and their families. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to order an out-of-province review of prosecutors' decision to not prosecute the accomplice in the death of Jordan Reimer. And Honourable Speaker, this petition was signed by Kevin Nelson, Kim Skoke, Larson Nelson, and many, many other fine Manitobans.
No further petition. The honourable member for Roblin.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I wish to present the following petition to the Legislative Assembly. And the background to this petition is as follows. Number one, on May 1st, 2022, Jordan Reimer, 24 years of age, was killed by an impaired driver while she was acting as a designated driver. Number 2, there are 2 people legally culpable for her death, the impaired driver and the accomplice. The driver was charged, but the second criminal, the accomplice, has not been held accountable. Number 3, a concerned citizen took the keys from the impaired driver earlier in the evening to ensure he could not drive impaired. The accomplice retrieved the keys from this citizen under false pretenses and knowingly provided the impaired driver with access to the vehicle. Number 4, the Winnipeg Police Services investigation provided adequate evidence to meet the charging standard and recommended charges be laid against the accomplice. The Crown prosecutors declined to prosecute the accomplice. Number 5, the family of Jordan Reimer has called for the prosecution of the accomplice and that the decision to not prosecute be reviewed independently. Number 6, as recently as 2022, there is precedent to refer criminal files of decisions to not proceed with prosecution to extra-provincial departments of justice for review. This was done with the Peter Nygaard file, which ultimately led to a reversal in the decision to not prosecute, and charges were laid. Number 7, an out-of-province review is supported by MAD Canada, MAD Manitoba, and by Manitobans. Number 8, the family has exhausted every avenue within the existing system, and in the absence of a prescribed process when a disagreement exists on charging standards, the only option is to request an independent, out-of-province review. Number 9, in December 2024, the WPS reported an alarming number of impaired drivers in the holiday check stop program. Extending criminal culpability beyond the driver to those who engage in overt actions to facilitate impaired driving will save lives. Number 10, Manitobans deserve to have confidence in the provincial government and justice systems to make decisions that achieve true justice for victims and their families. We petition the Legislative Assembly of Manitoba as follows: to urge the provincial government to order an out-of-province review of the prosecutor's decision to not prosecute the accomplice in the death of Jordan Reimer. This petition is signed by Tricia Kauk, Lee Stachniak, Lindsay Baumer, and many, many other Manitobans.
Good job.
There are no further petitions, grievances, orders of the day, government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
I'm announcing that Bill 10, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act, Bracket 2, Bill 25, the Private Partnerships Transparency and Accountability Act, and Bill 26, the Vital Statistics Amendment Act, which were previously announced for the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development on Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m., will instead be considered by the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs on the same date at the same time.
It has been announced that Bill 10, the Residential Tenancies Amendment Act 2, Bill 25, the Public-Private Partnerships Transparency and Accountability Act, and Bill 26, the Vital Statistics Amendment Act, which were previously announced for the Standing Committee on Social and Economic Development on Tuesday, May 13, 2025 at 6 p.m., will instead be considered by the Standing Committee on Legislative Affairs on the same date at the same time. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Can you please resolve the House into Committee of Supply for the consideration of departmental estimates?
The House will now resolve into Committee of Supply. Will the Deputy please take the chair?
Will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement? The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech. Thank you. I'm incredibly proud of these investments and plan outlined in our budget 2025 that will address the challenges that many Manitobans are facing with regards to housing, homelessness, substance use, and mental health. Our government will be making significant strides over the upcoming year to focus on initiatives that support Manitobans in need of shelter and critical supports to enrich their lives and make a brighter future for them. The department's proposed 2025-26 budget reflects a core expenditure of $734 million, which is an increase of $58 million from the 2024-25 budget. The 2025-26 Housing, Addictions and Homelessness summary budget is set at $854 million. As noted in Budget 2025 speech, Your Way Home strategy will invest over $70 million and increase the number of social and affordable housing units in the province and provide significant resources to end chronic homelessness. I am extremely proud of our strategy, and I want to thank all of those who took part in creating our strategy. It has been an honor and privilege to work with so many folks who led with such compassion and love for our relatives and put them at the center. This is a stark contrast of what we saw during the members' opposite time in government. For 7.5 years, members opposite stood by while Manitobans set up tents in our parks, our bus shelters, and on our streets year after year. They could not work collaboratively with others to support our relatives who needed it the most. The then Premier, Heather Stephenson, and the member for Fort White worked to sell people's homes out from underneath them. They sold hundreds of homes on Smith Street and allowed hundreds more to be sold off at Lyons Place. They even boarded up hundreds of Manitoba housing social units. Our government's taken a different approach. Our government heard Manitobans loud and clear when they said no more. For the first time in more than a decade, Manitoba Housing has acquired one property and leased a second property to house encampment residents. When renovations are complete, these properties will also become part of Your Way Home plan, providing transitional housing with wraparound supports to people experiencing homelessness, giving them a purpose, a sense of hope, and a place to belong. As part of our government's overall strategy, I am pleased that we have hired Tessa Blakey-Whitecloud to join our team. Tessa, for many years of experience working in this sector and has many years of experience working in this sector and is helping to inform our government's development and strategy to prevent homelessness, working across departments and with Indigenous partners and community organizations to ensure our work makes a difference for generations to come. Successfully addressing chronic homelessness requires significant investments in the supply of social and affordable housing. I'm pleased to share with all members that as a result of provincial funding, there has been more than 1,600 units or beds of social and affordable housing under development in Manitoba since we took government in October of 2023. That is a significant milestone and something to be celebrated. I want to share with Manitobans that these projects include the redevelopment of the Reuben Block in partnership with Fisher River Cree Nation and the multi-stage redevelopment of the Marketland site along with the University of Winnipeg Community Renewal Corporation and Centre Venture. I look forward to many more announcements to come. As critical as it is to add to the supply of social and affordable housing, it's just as important to invest in maintaining and improving what we have. I want to take this opportunity to put on the record, Honourable Chairperson, that the new PC leader wants to keep selling homes out from under Manitobans. Right now, he is delaying Bill 12, a bill that will protect the investment that Manitobans make in social and affordable housing from being sold. Members opposite could pass this bill today if they wanted to. And I question members opposite in their delaying Bill 12. Whose home do they want to sell next? We want to protect our social and affordable housing investments that taxpayers have invested in, which is why this bill is so important. We are the housing department, and this is our responsibility, which is to provide social and affordable housing to those who need it the most. I want to assure Manitobans that our government supports keeping our homes affordable. Last year, our government rolled out a new funding model for nonprofit housing providers whose original funding agreements have expired. So far, we have provided funding for 56 projects, ensuring that 2,264 units continue to be part of the social and affordable housing supply here in Manitoba. Budget 2025 commits to a further $4.4 million to this initiative. Our government will continue to invest in upgrading Manitoba housing units. In 2024-25, we undertook more than 600 capital projects in 88 different Manitoba communities, a stark contrast from the previous government, who sold off and put up boards and refused to maintain and keep our Manitoba housing affordable and equitable and accessible to Manitobans. While some projects are still underway, I'm pleased to report that looking at areas outside of Winnipeg, we successfully completed 284 housing projects. These projects had a combined value of $36.5 million, representing a 22% increase compared to the 2023-24 total of $29.9 million. Also in budget 2025, we have increased funding for the repair and maintenance of Manitoba housing portfolio by $10.5 million, of which more than $5 million will go towards the repair of 270 vacant units which have been boarded up due to the lack of investment by the previous PC government. We will not take that approach. We will ensure that Manitoba housing stays affordable and accessible for those who need it the most. Again, Honourable Chair, a stark contrast of the hundreds of units boarded up because of the neglect of the members opposite. Our government is committed to fostering a compassionate and inclusive system of supports that empower individuals facing homelessness and mental health and substance use challenges in a way that will build resilience and achieve safety, stability, wellness, and belonging, and essentially hope for a future with a warm place to call home, people to support them, and build their skills and confidence. People that struggle in our province need access to dignified housing, mental health, and substance use supports, and our government is committed to providing Manitobans with the support they need to enjoy a quality of life and a sense of belonging in their community. Our department is working with community partners to move forward on developing more withdrawal management and treatment capacity and options so Manitobans can have the supports they need for their substance use. Last month, April 15th, I had the privilege of standing with Minister Fontaine and noted Manitoban Scott Oak to announce our government's commitment of $1.5 million to support the construction and startup funds for the Ann Oak Family Recovery Centre. This centre will provide addiction support to women while also supporting their children, which will build a healthier community for women and their children. $1 million to support capital construction costs. Startup funding of $500,000 to support our commitment to expand detox beds and our treatment options so Manitobans have the support they need to overcome addictions. This investment is consistent with our government's investment in life-changing services like the Bruce Oak Recovery Centre. Over the next year, our department will be working with other departments such as Justice and Family and Service Providers to increase the number of mental health workers to improve access to resources while reducing the burden on emergency departments and police to address the needs of Manitobans. I'm pleased to share with members around the table that we are actively pursuing the establishment of a supervised consumption site, which will include wraparound supports and critical drug testing and harm reduction services to support individuals with safe and non-judgmental care. Manitobans sent us here with this mandate to ensure those with substance use disorders get connected to the supports they need, such as primary health care, housing, mental health supports, addictions, and treatment.
And the minister's time has expired. We thank her for her opening comments. And just a gentle reminder that we must refer to other members by portfolio or constituency. Does the critic have an opening statement? The honourable member for Midland. Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. As the MLA for Morden Winkler and as the official opposition critic for housing, addictions and homelessness and mental health, I carry a great responsibility that I do not take lightly. It is my duty to hold the current NDP government accountable for the decisions they make and the policies they implement, especially when it comes to issues that touch the lives of so many Manitobans so deeply. Housing, mental health, addiction services are not just line items in a budget. They are the pillars of community well-being. When these supports are weak or missing, people fall through the cracks, and it is our collective responsibility together as legislators to make sure that doesn't happen. Every Manitoban deserves access to safe housing, timely mental health care, and addiction services that are compassionate and effective and help them to recover. As critic, I will scrutinize the government's actions and advocate for solutions that reflect the needs of families, frontline workers, and those with lived experience and those that are needing help right now. I will ask the hard questions. I will demand transparency, and I will always keep Manitobans at the heart of everything I do as this critic for this portfolio. No matter your background, your income, or where you live in our province, your well-being matters, and I see you. I am here to represent all Manitobans, to ensure your voices are heard, and to push for results that make a real difference in people's lives. I want to speak to the urgent need for real, sustained action in these deeply connected areas that I speak about: addictions, treatment and recovery, mental health supports, and the fight to end the homelessness in Manitoba. Addiction isn't just a moral failing, it's a health issue. It demands a compassionate and comprehensive response. That means ensuring timely access to treatment, investing in long-term recovery supports, and walking with people on their journey to healing. Without this, we continue to lose too many lives, and too many families suffer in silence. One life lost is one life too many. Mental health is just as important as physical health. For too long, it's been overlooked and underfunded. We see that currently, right now, it's underfunded. We need these systems that are accessible, effective, and rooted in dignity, especially for those facing trauma, those in poverty, and those with the weight of addiction. No one should have to wait months or travel hours to get help they need. And none of this can be addressed without tackling homelessness. Housing is a basic human right. It is a foundation from which people can heal, grow, and contribute. They all work together. We must move beyond temporary fixes and focus on long-term, sustainable housing solutions with wraparound supports. As a critic for these vital areas, I'm committed to advocating for every single Manitoban who deserves better, because behind every statistic is a person, a family, and a story. And we can and we must do more. We need to not be attacking each other. I want to encourage the minister opposite to focus on the Manitobans that need her help. We need to focus on solutions for all Manitobans. It is time for the government to move far beyond empty rhetoric, and take meaningful action and measurable action. The people of Manitoba deserve better than just a Band-Aid solution or underfunded programs and political posturing. They deserve leadership that treats housing, addictions, and homelessness and mental health as necessities and urgent crisis situations. To those who continue to fight for change, frontline workers, advocates, and individuals who with lived experience, I see you and I will continue to stand with you. I will urge the government to listen and act and fulfill responsibilities to the people of Manitoba. The cost of inaction is too high, and the time for change is now, and I'm so pleased to be here to represent those in need in Manitoba. Thank you.
We thank the critic from the official opposition for those remarks. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the minister's salary is the last item considered for a department. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 24.1 bracket A contained in resolution 24.1. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber, and I would ask the minister and critic to please introduce their staff in attendance. Would the minister like to introduce her staff? The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thank you much, Honourable Chairperson. So I'd like to introduce Charlene Paquin, who is the DM of Housing, Addictions, Homelessness, and Mental Health. Can I give a little introduction? Okay. So prior to Charlene joining as my DM, she became the Deputy Minister at the end of March of this year, so it's been amazing to work with her. She brings such a wealth of knowledge. She's just slid right in and become a really essential part of our team. Charlene spent over 20 years with the province of Manitoba. She started her career as a policy analyst and spent 15 years with families, including as an Executive Director of Employment and Income Assistance Programs and Assistant Deputy Minister as EIA, Disability Programs and Early Learning and Child Care. Charlene also served as the Manitoba Ombudsman before taking on the role of the Civil Service Commissioner, and she was the Deputy Minister for Sports, Culture and Heritage, and the Associate Clerk for Public Service Transformation. And then over the past 3 years, Charlene was with Deloitte Canada, where she had worked with government and public sector organizations with a strong focus on human social services. Ton of knowledge this Charlene brings her to the DM position. And then next we have Carolyn, who is ADM of Housing. And Carolyn started with the Manitoba government in 1999 and joined Manitoba Housing as a senior policy analyst in 2004. And then since then, she's served as in a variety of leadership roles within the corporation, including housing delivery, portfolio management, strategic initiatives and operations. And she's been the Chief Executive Officer of Manitoba Housing and Assistant Deputy Minister in the Department of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness since 2023. Carolyn also sits on the board of End Homelessness Winnipeg, She's a graduate of the University of Manitoba. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Economics, Bachelor of Social Work, and a Master of Social Work. And she's married and a proud mother of 2 daughters, one of which I've gone to watch dance in Folklorama. So, and she's a master braider, I would say. So I want to thank her for the work that she does in our department, because she also brings a wealth of knowledge and makes my job easy. And then next I have Carolyn Stetcher. Carolyn joined us in November. Carolina Stetcher. Carolina joined us in November and again brings a wealth of knowledge, has worked in the government for quite a while. She's the Director of Ministerial Affairs. Prior to joining Housing, Homelessness and Addiction in January of this year. No, it was November. Was it January? Okay, because there was okay. She was a director in labor and immigration. Carolina has over 20 years of political and organizing experience, working as an assistant to a city councillor, a member of parliament, and working as an advisor to several cabinet ministers in the previous Dewar and Selinger governments. Carolina also has worked in the nonprofit charitable sector and community engagement and as a senior researcher and writer for a major funder in Winnipeg. She's got extensive organizing experience and holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Manitoba. So I want to thank you 3 for joining me and for the work that you do in our department. Miigwech.
And the honorable critic from Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Thank you very much to the Minister for introducing her staff. It's always nice to know who we're with in the room and just to discuss some things. It's just really nice. Thank you. I would like to introduce Mark Stewart, who is here on my behalf. He's the Director of Issues Management and here to assist me this afternoon as well.
In accordance with Sub-Rule 77, Bracket 15, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner, with questions put on the resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates that questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Again, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to come here and ask questions today. As the critic, it's such an important thing, and I'm very honored to be able to do this job. So I would like to start with one really quick question. Can the Minister confirm that the organizational chart in the supplemental estimates is complete and up to date?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Can the critic just elaborate, or is the critic referring to the organizational structure of the Department of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness?
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Yes. The organizational structure on page 18.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
I want to thank the critic for that question, and yes, the organizational structure is current and up to date.
The Honourable Member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I will try to make sure I wait for you, sorry. Question for the minister would be if the minister could list the positions and the political staff that she currently has working in her office, the name and the position.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
So I've already introduced our Deputy Minister, Charlene Paquin. We also have Maria Gonzalez. So I'm just going to introduce her. I have a little bit of a bio. I asked all my staff for bios because I thought it was important to introduce all these folks since you do work with them, and Manitobans should know who these folks are that are working for them as well. So I'm just going to see if I got a little bio from her. Okay, I don't have a bio for her. So Carly. So Carly's the executive assistant to Deputy Minister Paquin. She's been working with the Deputy Minister's office since the creation of the Mental Health Department in 2021. And Carly actually just came back from a maternity leave. So when I came, I think I was with Carly for maybe maybe a month, well, maybe 3 months, and then she was off. She had a little boy, so it was nice to see her come back after having her baby. She's been such a joy to work with and to have as part of our team. So prior to working in our department, she was with the Minister of Health, Seniors and Long-Term Care Office from 2017 to 2021, and she was their correspondence secretary, and she was there totaling she's worked 8 years with the province of Manitoba. And then before joining the province, she worked with the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority as their administrative assistant within the Communicable Diseases Unit. She also enjoys working in the administrative field at the Legislative building here. And then Karen also works in the DM's office, and she's the DM Senior Advisor on Housing, Addictions and Homelessness, and has been supporting the Deputy Minister's office for nearly a year. Karen provides direction and support to the administrative staff in the Minister's office and also the Deputy Minister's office, as well as departmental staff at all levels. She's such a pleasure to work with. She brings such great energy, always happy, and I would say all of our staff in our department have really great hearts, and that's why they work in this department. So that's the same for Karen. Karen comes with a social work background. She's done lots of senior policy analyst positions, and she's been with the government of Manitoba for over 7 years. She's focused her efforts on mental health and addictions policy and program development. And then Ritu works in our front, in my office in the front. So if you come into my office, you'll be greeted by Ritu, always with the smile, lots of energy, very nice to work with. And she began her career with the province of Manitoba in 2016. And she began in the Department of Families in 2017. She transitioned to the Legislative building as a correspondence secretary for the Minister of the Crown Services. And then since then, she's held several positions, key positions, including office manager to the Deputy Minister of Crown Services and assistant to the Minister of Mental Health and Community Wellness. So she carried on in my office. Following the formation of the current provincial government in October 2023, Ritu assumed the role of assistant to the Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness. And like I said, she's been such a delight to work with. Lots of skills, and anything that's needed, she's right there and gets done. In this capacity, she manages my calendar, oversees the coordination of public servants within the office. And yeah, she has a strong connection with the public. She's embraced a similar approach in her role, prioritizing warm professionalism and effective communication. And our office is like really fast paced. So she's someone who, has rose to that challenge. We get lots of calls, lots of emails, lots of requests for the minister to attend different events. So she's navigating a lot within the office. And she's such an amazing staff member too. And then Stella. So Laika is what we call her. Again, another...
The minister's time has expired. The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Thank you for, I love to hear stories about people that we work with. That's great. Can the minister tell me about which political staff, about the name and position, including the last name, if possible, please?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Sure, I'm just going to continue. I didn't get through our staff in our office, so I'm just going to continue till I'm done these folks, just a few more. Laika is, she's worked as a public servant for 18 years, and before joining us here at the Ledge, she worked with the Department of Sport, Culture and Heritage. She served in the Deputy Minister's Office of Mental Health and Community Wellness. She later transitioned to the role of Correspondent Secretary for the Minister of Mental Health and Community Wellness. Following the formation of the current provincial government, Laika was appointed as a Correspondent Secretary to myself. And in this role, she manages my mailbox, which again could be very challenging because we get, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of emails a day. She works closely with the intake coordinator, so all of the correspondence that comes in from whether it's housing, mental health, addictions, homelessness, they're navigating all of that. She monitors the casework from the general public. She also fulfills the responsibilities of the office manager when needed. So if Ritu's away, then she is covering that position. And she's, very enthusiastic and very, again, has a heart of gold. And then we have Rachel Bradburn. So Rachel comes from Salome Mission, and she has been working on the front line. She was one of their drop-in workers, and then moved into one of their Housing First team members. And she's someone that comes from lived experience. She's lived in Manitoba housing herself. She's helped house a ton of people, but she's also worked with our most vulnerable population. And she's also someone who's worked with tons of folks with substance use disorder, mental health needs, and she's just brought a ton of wealth of knowledge to our team. And then we have Mina. Mina also comes from Main Street Project. He was doing many different roles there. He's someone who has, I think he's got his master's degree, and he's a newcomer to Canada. I'm not sure how many years he's been here, but he's worked with a ton of folks and has a wealth of experience and has again helped house a ton of people. We were just at Main Street or Salome Mission for their Easter dinner, and we're helping serve meals there. And both Rachel and Mina had come to that, and everybody misses them. Like all the folks that were there receiving meals, they just couldn't give them enough hugs, and so it just speaks to the impact that those two have had on the folks that use the services there. And many have been housed but still come back because that's their community. And yeah, it's just wonderful to have those folks in our office. And then we have Jorge. Jorge has been such an amazing asset to our office as well. And he's the special assistant to myself. So he comes to events with me. He does some of the writing. He comes to a lot of meetings. He helps coordinate as well, meetings, stakeholder meetings. And he's, again, someone who contributes greatly to our team. And I can't say enough about these folks. And then in my next, I'm going to run out of time, I'll get into the political stuff.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Again, I appreciate all the information. I do think it's important for us to honor those people who have worked really diligently with communities that are that we're here to help and serve, and it gives us a better it gives us a better perception and idea of what we need to do. So I think that's so important. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the minister's bios of all her civil servants. Will she take it under advisement to provide us with a list of political staff and positions? As I have many questions, and I just would love to just get to some of the things that are really important on my mind.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
So I will, so Tessa Whitecloud Blakey, or Blakey Whitecloud, as I had mentioned before, has joined our team as a special advisor to homelessness. She's been working on the encampment strategy that our department has developed with my leadership, in terms of making sure that folks are getting housed with the supports that they need. Something that I, in my opening statement, has said has been a long time coming. The previous government was boarding up Manitoba housing, was selling off Manitoba housing, was not investing in any housing, in fact, never built any social housing in their 7.5 years of being in government. So we're taking a different approach in terms of making sure that we have someone who's advising us that comes from the sector, that has the knowledge, that has the developed relationships, that is able to, make those connections and bring folks together. We're also, pretty proud of the collaborative teamwork that we've been able to establish, not only with Tessa, but working alongside, whether it's Main Street Project, Slow Mission, Salvation Army, and many other service delivery organizations, Sunshine House, that have come to the table to provide those supports. And I know the critic in their opening statement was saying how critical it is to not only provide 4 walls, and I know in the media last week that they had commented on our 67 units and said how important it was to make sure that there's wraparound supports. I couldn't agree more, and that's exactly what Your Way Home does. And we were sent here with a mandate from Manitobans that clearly said, enough of 7.5 years of not providing those supports and not providing social housing and continuing to leave the boards on those units, that we want to see clear investments, but we also want to see folks being supported in their housing so that they're successfully housed and that they're getting the supports that they need so that they can live a successful life and have a sense of hope, a sense of belonging, and some skill building. We, for far too long, heard from the sector, and Tessa, was in that sector. I remember when I was a critic and I was visiting, the many different shelters and hearing from these folks. They would house folks, not have the supports to provide the wraparound supports because they had a previous government that didn't invest in those supports. So these folks would not stay housed, or they would go into Manitoba Housing, and because there were lots of cuts, whether it was tenant service coordinators that were cut or security that was cut, folks were not staying successfully housed. On the advice of many of the service providers and folks that are on the front lines in Manitoba Housing, and our great CEO Carolyn here, as soon as we got elected, we took their advice and we invested back into tenant service coordinators and helped support those folks that were so desperately needing those supports, that were on those front lines doing that work each and every day with so little supports. And I'm going to talk about that more, but I want to get to Noelle. Noelle DePape is a policy manager, and she's been doing some amazing work as well on Your Way Home and helping to advise that and working, with a team approach. And all of these folks that I've mentioned, whether it's Jorge, Rachel, Carolina, or, Noelle, they've, all been a great political team, and we have such a great, deputy minister and ADM and so many others that contribute, whether it's civil servants. I want to shout them out because we can't do this work without our civil servants. For far too long, we heard that they were not being treated very well, and when we came into this position, we wanted to make sure that they knew that they were seen, that they were valued, that they were heard, and that we were taking their advice, because their advice is valuable, and the work that we do is the work that they send us here to do.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I want to just say also that I've had the opportunity to get to know Tessa Blakey Whitecloud as well, and she definitely has a heart, and her goal is to help everybody she can. So that's just so admirable, as well as many of her team, I'm sure. So I just want to say good work for her, good job on the work she's done before she became part of the government. Also, and hopefully now she continues that. So I'm very happy to hear that she's consulting with us, because it's so important to have somebody like her on the team, and I think that's great. I just would like to ask the Minister if we know that other jurisdictions are seeing success helping to break the cycle of violence, homelessness, and addiction through evidence-based programs in correctional facilities like the therapeutic living units in Alberta. And just wanted to know, what is the total spend on mental health and addictions support for individuals in correctional facilities, and what amount has been dedicated to opening such a unit in Manitoba to make our communities safer and to help those with those issues, like those health concerns as well here in Manitoba, to give them hope in the future?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thank you, Honourable Chairman. What I'd like to just share is that we take a cross-departmental approach. So we've been working really closely with Justice, and I really want to lift up our Justice Minister and their team as well for the work that they've been doing, because we've seen a decrease in crime stats here in our province, and it really shows the work that the Justice Minister is doing, but police are doing, service delivery organizations, those on the front line that are working with the very folks that we're talking about that have, specific support needs. And we've been working, whether it's with justice, whether it's with families, whether it's with health, whether it's with education, getting kids fed in school, ensuring families don't have to worry about sending their kids to school with lunch or breakfast, that they can worry about, spending their dollars on getting their kids fed supper and their lights on at home, paying other bills. Whether it's looking at the barriers to why people are becoming homeless, the prevention work. We've been doing a lot of work on that. We know that there's kids that come out of care and go into homelessness. We've been working with families on that, and how do we ensure that kids have a place to live, whether we're working with Spence Neighborhood Association and AMC on that project here on Isabel and getting those units up, and so that those kids have, the supports that they need. Folks coming out of incarceration, so they have IDs, so that when they come out, they have access right away. They don't have to apply for their IDs, that they have access to their IDs, which is a huge barrier for a lot of folks. And then making sure that, there's more housing online. Your Way Home talks about that very thing. Housing is the biggest barrier, and coming out of 7.5 years of a government who didn't invest, that, sold off within seconds, hundreds of units. And I think about 185 Smith, and one of my staff live in there, Mina. I've gone into that building, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful building, and I think about those folks, and I had the opportunity to speak to some of those folks who were displaced and actually became homeless because of the selling off of that building. How fortunate or unfortunate it was that those units were lost, and the government just put those money back into revenue and didn't reinvest them and buy some other housing, or even think about just keeping that and making sure that those folks were supported and kept housed. Whether it's our Manitoba Housing taking 20% of our housing and making it housing first, and making sure that folks have wraparound supports. We are making those investments to make sure and ensure that folks that need the support of housing to stay housed, and the revolving door, or the recidivism, stable housing is a part of that, and making sure that people have the proper supports and that they are supported is a huge part of that. And they now have a government that is providing those supports. For far too long, as I alluded in my last answer, organizations were banging on the previous government's door saying, like, we need supports for folks because, we're seeing folks become, going to jail or becoming homeless or going deeper into their addictions. And they felt, they didn't have adequate supports to support these folks, and they were banging on their door asking the PC, previous failed government, for more supports to help these folks. And, it fell on deaf ears. And these folks, the homelessness population continued to rise. Folks fell deeper in their addictions. More housing continued to be sold off. More boards continued to be put up on our own social and affordable housing, our crown jewel. Shame.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I just want to I'll ask that question again in maybe a different way if the minister didn't understand it, but I was asking about addictions treatment specifically, what they're doing for those that are struggling with mental health and addictions that are incarcerated. Could the minister please explain to me or tell me what they're doing currently for those individuals? And if she doesn't know, can she take it under advisement or as an undertaking to get that information to me?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech. And again, I will reiterate that our government is taking a whole of government approach. We work across departments. We're working with justice. We work with families. We work with health. We work with any and all departments because we believe that Manitobans deserve the support that they need, whether it's my department or another department. We will make sure we walk across, the hall to go and make an appointment with one another, talk to one another to see how we can best support folks. when I think about the prevention and, you know, folks coming out of incarceration, I remember when I was teaching and I was working in this program called Cruising to Success, and I was working with level 5 car thieves, and these were youth that they didn't see any hope. They owed like $200,000-$300,000 because they had stolen a whole lot of cars. And in our program, we had worked with them on really looking at how do we change our behavior, how can we take some of the skills that we have and put those skills into practice in becoming, you know, whether it was an electrician, because some of them were hot wiring cars and they were dealing with wires, or whether it was, you know, they were very inventive, these youth, and they had a whole ton of skills. And part of my program, the morning was education and the afternoon was alternatives. We would teach them life skills, how to go shopping, how to make a budget. Some of them we were transitioning back into school. Many of them didn't have connection with their families. There were kids in care, so we were helping them connect with their families. So I think of that work and connect it to this work, because a lot of folks that are incarcerated often, you know, maybe don't have the connection, don't have the skills. And what our justice minister is doing is he's creating pathways for folks to change their behavior, to get connected to skills, to get the supports that they need prior to leaving incarceration. But also, and I don't want to speak for justice because this actually isn't a justice question. This is a justice question that you asked, but I just want to speak generally because this is interrelated to the work that we all do. We all support people coming out of justice. So in terms of like housing and when folks come out of incarceration, you know, are we helping to support folks? And when we talk about our navigation center, you know, having folks supported in there, because we've met a lot of folks that are in encampments that have been there for 3, 4, 5 years that came out of incarceration because they weren't supported and they were just kind of dropped off at a certain point. And we want to make sure that we're supporting and meeting people where they're at. And it's really about partnerships. I think about our trip to Houston, when we went to Houston and we met with those folks out in Houston and we looked at their model, how they were reducing recidivism rates through stabilized housing, through supporting people, meeting them where they're at, providing the wraparound supports, whether it's the Edmonton police that came down and met with our department and a whole other bunch of folks that are on the front lines and shared their model that they're doing in Edmonton to support those folks that are unhoused and getting them the supports that they need. But it's a whole of government approach. It's not a one department approach. It's looking at the barriers, looking at pathways into homelessness and how do we get in front of those in terms of prevention and working collaboratively. And again, whether that's with justice, whether that's with health, whether that's with families. And I mean, I'm just saying those ones because we work really, really close with those folks, but certainly justice is doing an amazing job in terms of working and making sure that folks are getting the support they need. But that's a justice question.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I'm disappointed that we can't get some answers and that the minister doesn't know what they're doing for addictions and mental health supports in correctional facilities in our own province. And it's to me, those parents or those whoever have children or loved ones that are struggling with addictions, they need an answer for that. I think it's important that we don't just talk about housing, and we need to talk about the real situations that are happening to our loved ones. Another question I would have, would the minister, what percentage of individuals are living in correctional facilities that are connected with the life-saving and life-transforming opioid antagonist therapy medications that are used for opioid use disorder? In case the minister is not sure what that is, this is a world-renowned evidence-based program that is allowing medication connection, immediate connection anywhere, anytime to life-saving OAT medication for those with addictions. My question would be, what is currently being budgeted for this program in Manitoba?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker. Well, or Chairperson, while my staff is looking that up, I just want to take an opportunity to talk about evidence-based approaches and how much I agree with that and how much we should be taking that approach. And as a member knows, evidence-based approach is what experts are pointing to when we look at supervised consumption sites. And when the member was doing their opening statement, they referenced this isn't just a moral failing, as if referring to people who use substances as if they were using them, as if they were morally failing because they were using substances. And I just want to say to that member that these folks are not morally failed folks. These are folks who are struggling. There's deep-rooted issues why people use drugs. And for that member to say, isn't just a moral failing, is referring to these folks as if they use substances because. And I want to go back to, Pallister. Because those were words that were used in this House in the time of their predecessor. And, I would hope that that member, being the critic, would not be, looking at folks who are using substances in that way, because these are folks who require supports, who look at that critic for their support. And that member also said, these are folks who fall through the cracks, that they need to get the supports that they need. So getting the supports that they need and falling through the cracks, would a supervised consumption site not catch these folks? Someone who is falling through the cracks would essentially need a supervised consumption site to save their life. And I know that member, when they were at the consultation in the community, that someone had asked them, how can someone get treatment if they're dead? And the member could not answer that question. And the member was asked that question again in this House, and that member could not answer that question. So there are people dying in this province right now from toxic drug supply, and that member says, there are people falling through the cracks. There absolutely are people falling through the cracks, and these folks need to get the supports that they need to get to a supervised consumption site so that they can get led to the resources that they need, whether that's treatment and recovery, whether that's primary health care, whether that's, we're making sure that we're getting folks drugs off the street, and education. We're taking a four-pillared approach. These folks need to have folks who believe in them, that are non-judgmental, that aren't using these words, moral failing. Because certainly these are Manitobans that deserve to be respected, that deserve for this not to be stigmatized even more. Members across the way, call a committee that is in Swan Valley helping to, clean up used needles, the crack commando committee. Like, how dare they? And that member across the way sits there and allows that rhetoric to be used in this House when these members are community members that are simply trying to help their community. So I'd ask that member, does that member agree, that the members that are in Swan River helping to support these members, whether it's getting them STBBI tested or cleaning up used drug needles? Because certainly when their government was in, when the PC failed government were in government, they were handing out 200,000 needles without any disposal plan in 2022 or 2021. Then 2022 was a further 300,000. 2023, 500,000 without any disposal plan. Our government learned of that. We put in a disposal plan. We are working with the regions. And certainly, members opposite said for far too long, it's been underfunded. Well, we've stepped up to the plate and we're funding.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Just to set the record straight, I did say addiction is not a moral failing, it is a health issue. That is what I said, so I just wanted to clarify that. It's disappointing that the minister opposite is making things up and saying things that are not true. I was hoping to come in here in good faith and just have a good conversation about how we could work together and find out information about what's happening in our...
I'll just remind the member, we can't imply that other members are meaning to mislead others or lie. So I'd invite a reframing. The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Sorry, I did correct the speaking that I did say, so I hope that people are listening and will hear what I truly had to say about that. Again, I will say I'm disappointed in the things that are being said today. I'm here in good faith, again, to I want to do the best I can as a legislator here in the province of Manitoba. I want to do my critic role to the best of my abilities, and I'm not able to do that when the minister opposite won't even help me to answer a question. It's disappointing, and it breaks my heart, actually, because there's people in our province that need to hear some of these answers, especially parents or loved ones that are struggling in addiction. I think they need to hear some of these things. So I'd like to ask another question. One of the questions I do have is, can the minister tell me, can you tell me from the Sunshine House organization how many people were connected through that program, that organization, to mental health and addiction services after using the overdose prevention site specifically? How many people, and I would like to know a number, that were connected, that they have proof that they were connected to mental health and addiction services?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And I just want to go back to the previous question. My staff have pulled up the answer to the prescription question for those incarcerated. So from October 2023 to March 2024, there were over 1,000 unique clients. So 1,076 people were administered OAT. That's everyone, so not just justice. And then in 24-25, 1,524. And again, the questions that the members opposite is asking are justice-related questions. The Justice Minister was in Committee of Supply for 3 days. I would have hoped that these questions would have been given to the critic in justice, for the critic to ask the Justice Minister in their time in Committee of Supply. I'm sure they would have got the answers from the Justice Minister. We are again in Housing, Addictions, Homelessness and Mental Health Committee of Supply and not in Justice Committee of Supply. And going to this next question around MOPS, I just want to lift up the mobile overdose prevention site provider, Sunshine House. They are doing such tremendous heavy lifting. They've been doing this for a very, very long time, and you know we rallied to keep them going. They had knocked on the previous PC government's door, asking for government support to keep this life-saving site going, and of course their door was slammed in their face, basically. Previous PC failed government did not take a harm reduction approach, did not support them, and when we came into government, we of course stepped up because we recognize these are, again, life-saving measures. These are helping people stay alive, and certainly we saw how valuable that was just a few short months ago on I think it was Maine and Logan, when there was over 10 people who had overdosed, and they were overwhelmed. They couldn't keep up. Thankfully, our first responders came and were able to support them, and not one of those folks succumbed to their overdose, thankfully. And you know, it's traumatic work working in this field, you know, supporting these folks each and every day. I want to also, you know, lift up those folks that are having to do this work, you know, whether it's the North End Women's Centre or the West Central Women's Centre. Many of these folks that they're there to support women and, you know, their needs, whether it's with parenting skills, whether it's, you know, to support them coming out of domestically violent, abusive relationships. They never thought that they would be doing this work that they're doing. And this is why it's so vital that we, you know, continue to invest in these kinds of services, but even more, why we need to open up our supervised consumption site here in our province. And I know members opposite continues to, you know, spew this rhetoric that it's enabling, that we're just going to be having people come in there and we're going to be providing, you know, drugs to people. That's not accurate. What's accurate is we are going to be connecting people to care. We're going to be saving lives. We're going to stop or limit the transmission of STBIs here in our province. And more importantly, it's going to be connecting people to relationship and leading them onto a path of recovery and treatment, something that is long overdue. We've seen too many people in this province succumb to the toxic drug supply, and we heard from Manitobans in 2023 knocking on doors that they wanted to see people connected to services through a supervised consumption site, and that's exactly what we're on the path to do.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. It's interesting how the minister can talk about, how it's long overdue that we need treatment and recovery, but yet they put almost $6 million into a drug injection site and only $1.5 million into treatment and recovery. That's disappointing to hear that. But again, I wanted to ask the question. My question wasn't answered by the minister, so I'll ask a new question. Can the minister tell me how many nurses and doctors are employed at the ops at Sunshine House? Again, of course, we know that every single person who works in these organizations is doing such an important work to help save our loved ones, and I appreciate what they do as well, and I just want to make sure that we give them what they need to do their jobs and to protect them from the emotional and the mental health that they have to go through to do what they're doing, so to give them that support. So asking questions that I'm asking today is because I care, and I want to make sure that we can support and do what we can for those frontline workers and for our loved ones that are in addiction. So yeah, if you should answer the question about how many doctors and nurses are on are in ops at the Sunshine House.
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. And, I don't know how to even, where to go with this. The critic says, these drug injection sites, and then she wants to give them support, but on the other side, I'm just confused with where the members opposite stands on this. Does the member opposite support supervised consumption sites? And I just want to let the members opposite know that during Committee of Supply in Executive Council that their leader actually said that they would use the correct terminology, which is supervised consumption site. So I don't know if that's been communicated with the rest of his caucus or not, but the correct terminology is supervised consumption site. People are using it under the supervised supervision of people who are trained in the case of someone overdosing and it having to be reversed, or they're not using alone if medical staff have to be called in the case where maybe they wouldn't be able to, but there's never been one case across Canada where anyone has ever overdosed and lost their life in a supervised consumption site. And that is evidence-based. We've done cross-jurisdictional scans of all the supervised consumption sites in all of Canada. And we are taking a different approach here in Manitoba. And I know the members opposite likes to talk about this continued support and frontline support. We are trying to give these folks actual frontline support. So give them the support is giving them a supervised consumption site so that they don't have to continue to do all of the work by themselves. They can't continue to do what they're doing. They've told the previous government that. We are behind, so far behind, 7.5 years behind because of what the previous government did. They did not take a harm reduction approach. We are trying to play catch up. We are trying to clean up the mess of the previous government, unfortunately, and we've lost too many lives in this province. We've continued to put services into the system, and MOPS has told us, And MOPS has told the previous government, there's a supervised consumption site that needs to be stood up in Manitoba. Experts have told the previous government, of which they took out of a report that was written by experts. So in 2023, there were 33 referrals that were made. In 2024, MOPS had a total of 65,000 visits. And of those visits, people use substances 10,743 or 45 times. And of those instances, only 72 resulted in overdose. So those were all reversed. No one lost their lives. There was no deaths. Over 50,000 snacks and coffee were supplied. Again, you're building relationships. You're having coffee with these folks. You're sitting with them while after they've done their substance and making sure that they're okay. And, you know, these are, a lot of them are peers that have, that had substance use disorders that now are, you know, helping others see that it is possible for them to come through their substance use and that they can do it, they can change their life around, and that there is hope, and that if they can do it, that they can also do it. So this is a valuable service that MOPS is providing. And I know that Aboriginal Health and Wellness, their mobile primary health care van is also, whenever MOPS is out on Hagen or Logan in Maine, that they're also going and providing primary health care to folks. So they're also adding services to support them as well. And as a government, we're going to continue to support them because we see the value in their work. And again, I want to just uplift those that are on the front lines doing this heavy lifting.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Just a quick word about the treatment and recovery side of this situation and of our loved ones that are dealing or suffering this health crisis of addiction. I would like to ask the minister what she would say to someone, a frontline worker that is having to, that works at a RAM clinic, that has to turn someone away because they don't have room or space for them. And then the next day or the next weekend, they see that person's name in the paper that they've passed away. And it's devastating. And I've had conversations and phone calls. And I don't know what to do or say to try to help. But it's devastating because they're in tears because they have no way to help people that want help. They don't have any recovery available or treatment spaces available. So this is a big thing. We need to make sure we talk about this. We need to have a conversation about it. That person, and she asked me, what would you say to somebody who is dead? I don't want to ever have to that person to ever get to that point. And we should all not want that. Of course we don't want that. And that's why we need treatment and we need these spaces. Currently, my question would be right now is, I didn't get my question answered about the nurses or the doctors, but my question now would be, what is the wait time for medical detox right now? If somebody wanted to walk off the street and get help, what is the wait time for those spaces?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Miigwech. So while my great team is looking for those answers to your question, just have a few comments that I want to make. The member asked me what would I say to a RAM clinic staffing member, and I've visited several of those RAM clinics and talked to many of those frontline workers. And I've also talked to many of those workers that are on the front lines doing unsupervised consumption. And, you know, I was in this house on that very side that member is sitting on, asking the government, that failed PC government that was on this side, daily, what were they doing to support Manitobans as they were dying in our province? When a report came out that said a supervised consumption site was needed in this province to save lives, to help take the pressure off of RAM clinics, to help take pressure off of frontline organizations, to help support the very people who were struggling with their substance use disorders, to help save lives in this province. The government of the day did nothing. Were they supporting families? Were they supporting those that were on the front lines that were saying, we need help, we need support? They didn't support mobile overdose prevention site, who were going and supporting those folks to keep them alive, to help make sure that the toxic drug supply that they were potentially putting into their body that could take their life, that they were okay, and if they did overdose, that they could reverse it, and if they couldn't, that there was someone there that they could call to make sure that they got help. The government of the day, the PC government, was not taking a harm reduction approach. They were not supporting those folks. So they now have a government that is not only supporting, but they're providing housing for the very folks that member opposite was a part of, that government that they ran for, and they can't run from their government's record, because they were putting people into homelessness, they were pushing them into deeper addictions, and they were allowing organizations who were not trained to provide the supports that they were having to provide to folks that had substance use disorders on a daily basis, sometimes hundreds of reversals, to do that work before MOPS was provided the support that they were provided. And we wrote letters to the federal government to get them federal funding, because the province would not come to the table to support them. And shame on the government that was horrible, that they would allow their own members in their own province to die of overdoses and do nothing. And I know the members smiling, shaking their head over there, and you know, that was horrible when that was happening. Because mothers were coming to us, fathers were coming to us, foster parents were coming to us, and they were defenseless. They couldn't do anything. Like so many family members, and these were Manitobans that were losing their lives, and there was so little resources in this province to support those folks that were using, because the government of the day, the PC government, would not take a harm reduction approach. They would not meet people where they were at. And for them, at that time, it was a moral failing of anyone who was using substance uses. And that was shameful, because that was stigmatizing people who were using substances. They wouldn't come forward for support. They delved deeper into their addictions. They wouldn't even seek help because of what the government was doing. Their former leader threw a report on the floor as if it was nothing. And those were from experts, people who, you know, worked tirelessly to put that together. And again, so if members opposite want to talk about, harm reduction approach, there's lots I can talk about.
The honourable member for Morden Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I'm still disappointed that we can't talk about the questions and what we need to do to change what's happening in our province right now. We need to focus on the communities. We need to focus on our loved ones who are in addictions and who desperately need our help, rather than sitting here and smashing previous governments, smashing people in this room. It's not necessary. We need to talk about fixing and helping the situation and doing all we can do to help our loved ones get free from addictions. I can answer the question for her. I talked to a mother of a young girl who just a couple of weeks ago, and she said her daughter is in desperate need of treatment and recovery services, and the wait for her daughter is 3 to 6 months. So that's what I'm asking. I'm asking again, how long is the wait time? How long are people waiting for medical detox spaces, non-medical detox spaces? I'm asking for any answer right now. I just think it's time that we talk about what's not being done here, and not by others and previously, but actually what's not being done right now by the current government. It's disappointing. It's our loved ones. It's our community loved ones who are suffering because there's no additional treatment dollars out there. So my question again is, I'm going to ask it again, to ask, what is the wait time for recovery and addiction services right now for treatment spaces?
The Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
I know that member wants to run away from her government's record, but you can't run away from a record where you had 7.5 years of not taking a harm reduction approach. When we clearly have to catch up to something that the previous government never provided. When you have frontline service providers who are providing a service that they were never meant to provide. When they were banging on the previous government's door saying, we need a supervised consumption site. We need more supports because we can't handle the amount of overdoses that we're having to reverse, when that isn't even their job. So when the member says we just want these questions asked, well, we can't answer these questions without talking about what wasn't provided, because we're having to play catch up. So what I will tell the member opposite is, withdrawal management services, detox, the wait times have decreased by 44% since we have taken government. And we're taking a balanced approach. We're not going to take the approach that the previous government took, where it was one way only. Didn't meet people where they were at. They were okay with people, dying on our streets, living in bus shacks, living in encampments, not getting the support and housing that they needed, not even getting housing, because your government was selling, when you were in government, you were selling off housing. You were firing staff. You fired frontline staff that were there to actually support folks. So if someone was struggling with an addiction and they were a tenant service coordinator and they were there to support someone with an addiction and could lead them to the resources that they needed, those folks weren't even there because the government that you were...
I'll just invite the Minister to direct comments through the Chair, the Honourable Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness.
Thanks for that correction, Chair. So when the previous failed government was in government, they were slashing, cutting, and decimating services here in our province, whether that was in the healthcare system, where folks went to get their supports, whether that was in housing, where you stabilize people, whether that was taking a harm reduction approach. Those services were decimated. And like I said, I know that member wants to run away and not be a part of that previous government's record, but you can't be a part of a team or a party and come into it and think that you're going to be absolved from anything that happened before you came, because you ran under their banner. You ran under a party that used, you know, billboards that refused to search a landfill for people who were dead, who were deceased. So, Deputy or Chairperson, like we can't pretend like these things didn't happen. So when the members opposite talks about experts, like the experts are, you know, folks that were in the healthcare system that were fired from the previous government. The experts are those tenant service coordinators that were fired under the previous government. The experts are those that are working in MOPS, that are each and every day reversing overdoses or supporting those that are using so that they don't overdose, who are ensuring that they are getting clean supplies so that the STBBIs are not spreading here in our province. And the experts are in our healthcare system, which, you know, members opposite like to pretend like they did nothing to. And these are the very people who are supporting our folks on the front lines. So we will continue to, you know, build up our services here in our province. That's what Manitobans sent us here to do. They sent the previous government a strong message that they were no longer okay with what they were doing, whether that was putting people into homelessness, decimating the healthcare system, or allowing people to die in our streets. We're not going to take that approach. We're going to meet people where they're at, get them the supports they need, and ensure that we get our first supervised consumption site opened up here in our province.
The honourable member for Morton Winkler.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. I came here today to do my best job that I could do in my critic role. And I can only do what I can do working together with the person or the minister across the aisle with me. And it's disappointing to be able to sit here and ask heartfelt questions and not have an answer. To the mother that has that child that's in addiction, to that frontline worker in tears because they can't help and don't have a space for recovery for their friend who they know needs that space because there's no space for them. I just want to tell you that I'm listening to you, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about things that are not important because you are important. The things that you are going through every day with your loved one, advocating for your loved one for recovery services, they're important, and these are things that we need to talk about. We need to be sitting here and talking about what we can do every single day to help that mother, that daughter, that child, the father who needs that addiction services, those supports. That's what we need to be doing. And that is what I'm going to continue to do over and over again. I'm going to say every single day, treatment and recovery, especially when there's such a vast difference between the current government's perspective on what balance looks like. It's almost $6 million on addiction supervised consumption site. I'll correct myself there with that saying. I don't mean to be disrespectful. That's just, I didn't realize that was, you know, the way we should be saying it. But either way, it's a consumption site. But the vast difference between the 1.5 million for treatment and recovery and the almost 6 million for a consumption site, it just doesn't make sense in my brain at all. I've got a loved one who went through recovery, and he told me straight out, he said, I wouldn't be here if there was a site like that around me. And his life is so valuable to me. I couldn't imagine living my life without my husband. He's an amazing person. He has such an amazing life, and he affects all of us in such a huge way. And it's just, he is my inspiration. And every single mother I talk to who has a child who's looking for, you know, spaces for recovery, That mother is my inspiration. They're the heroes. They're advocating for treatment. They're advocating for
Order.
recovery.
The hour being 5 p.m. Committee rise and call on the Speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.